Okay, so here's this new movie coming out. It feels like it's an Agatha Christie whodunit, Knives Out-esque kind of a story. We're gonna dive into the spoiler review here. I did not go to see the movie, but Roland did. The gist of it, from what I understand, is it's based in 1950s London, where a planned movie version of a hit stage play is being worked upon, but right as they're about to get started, a pivotal member of the crew gets murdered, and then so we get a pair of cops who kind of come in, and they have to do the work of figuring out who is the killer, and obviously some of the suspects are the people who are working on the play itself. So with that in mind, Roland, let's dive into it. I mean, the cast is stacked. You got Sam Rockwell, Saoirse Ronan. There's like Harris Dickinson, Adrian Brody. I think like
Yeah.
Pearl Chanda. There's all kinds of people in this movie. Searchlight Pictures went out and got a great cast, and it certainly looks like it was shot well. The production design is great. It looks like it's a proper period film. But
hmm
you went and saw this movie. What did you think about it?
Um, let me just say that it is a good movie. I said a little bit on Instagram in my overall analysis is that it's okay. And I say that because it's dealing with a lot of concept that's been done before. I mean, I don't know if you can tell, but my background is Hail Caesar because that's what
Yeah.
this movie reminds me of. Like you look at this film, you're like, oh my yeah, Hail Caesar, I saw this, but it's not. It's a totally different movie. And it's a lot of this movie is kind of dealing with like, oh my gosh, yeah, these cliches and this and that, aren't they so boring? Literally, that's like one of the first lines is like, whodunits are so boring, they're so predictable. The biggest jerk gets killed first, and blah blah blah, and that happens. And throughout the whole movie is just like a lot all the cliches that they mentioned. Now they do amazing job with foreshadowing. There's so many instances and so many layers of foreshadowing that I have to give them praise for because they did a fantastic job at that. And they do have this cast, but I feel like maybe I don't know, maybe it was the directing, maybe it was something, but like it a lot of these jokes they just didn't punch as hard as they could have been. And I feel like there was always something missing and there was never, this true sense of originality. It kept feeling like it was taking inspiration from everything, but actually wanting to be its own story. A lot of it is, dealing with the Agatha Christie play and turning it into a movie and even having somebody play the famous writer. Um, it just it was doing a lot, but it wasn't doing enough, if that makes sense.
Okay, so so from what you're saying is basically it's super meta in that not only is it dealing with an Agatha Christie like story, it literally incorporates the author or
It's
a
literally
fictionalized
dealing with,
version of the author
yeah,
into the movie. So it's because I was thinking this is like a Knives Out-esque movie, which I suppose that's not entirely false because it is a Knives Out-esque movie. Like this movie very much has like all the whodunit elements, which Knives Out were, it's Knives Out takes place in the present day, and it sort of kind
yeah,
of tries to tie into all of those elements that were made famous by Agatha Christie. But this movie sort of says, okay, we're gonna go, into the mouth of the lion and try to tell a story with Agatha Christie being a part of the story. So it's
yeah.
it's it's like a Deadpool. So maybe the good analogy would be this movie is to Agatha Christie whodunit movies that Deadpool is to a superhero movie.
Honestly, I would say this is the scream of whodunits,
Okay.
but less. Let me see if I can make this analogy. The scream of whodunits, um, mimicking Hail Caesar. How's that?
Okay. I can follow that. I can follow that.
Yeah.
That's
Scream, of
so
course, is a fantastic horror movie from the 1990s, which started the whole meta craze of, pointing fun at cliche horror films. So I feel like that's the best way to explain this.
so with that in mind, I mean, you said that it does a lot, but it doesn't do enough. I mean, where is the disconnect at? Is it the acting? Is there too much going on? Do you
There's
think the
too much going
directing?
on. There's too much of the director writer um trying to convince the audience of like, hey, like I watch a lot of whodunits too, and I know all the cliches, and here are the cliches. Let me explain it to you, and then let me show it to you on screen in case you were totally oblivious. It was just like, just chill out with the cliches. Just let's enjoy the movie. You don't have to keep circling back to the cliches that you've talked about, and or at least have like a twist to it. And it just, and even to when you find out the killer, it's honestly pretty basic. I don't know if I want to get uh, Dan, do you
No,
do you,
you don't have to give it away if you don't want to. It's up to. I mean, we did put a spoiler warning up, so it's your call if you wanted to give it away. But before we even do any of that, the biggest thing that anybody going into a whodunit movie is looking for is that the big twist at the end should be something that you don't see coming, because otherwise the whole experience is sort of feels hollow and not worth it. Because if you can, I mean, because there's the thing, the key to a movie like this working, where you're trying to do this the murder mystery whodunit, you want to be led into all these different directions, and you sort of want the audience guessing the whole time. But then if the majority of your audience manages to guess who the actual killer is pretty early and then gets it right, then I don't think you're doing your job as a filmmaker, because then what's the point of a whodunit? Like, your audience already figured it out less than halfway through the movie. But if the audience you leave them surprised, you leave them like, oh my God, I didn't, what? Like, that's how like all those reality shows work, where you're like, oh, five of you guys are trying to win a prize, but one of you is secretly trying to, ruin everybody
yeah.
else's chances. That's basically like the same idea. And the reason why those shows are so popular is because people want to be enthralled by the mystery, and at the end find out like it's somebody that they never saw coming. So from that perspective, what you're saying is this movie kind of makes the cardinal sin, or of a whodunit, which is it becomes predictable. Is that am I getting that right?
I mean, when you watch the movie, necessarily you probably couldn't predict I'm just gonna say it. You don't necessarily predict like who the character is. And then you like watch back and you're like, oh, yeah, it makes sense. But then you close your eyes, you don't even think about like how the story's progressing, and you think of like, all right, who is gonna be the most cliche, who's gonna be the most basic character they can pick? Oh, it's one of the people from the lobby that we repeatedly see. It's one of those guys, like one of the servers. And that's always like the whole like, oh,
Uh,
the butler did it. Like, even if you don't know who done it, oh, the butler did it. So it's just kind of like you could have made it a little more enticing. And then you have Saoirse's character, who is a rookie constable, who's always like predicting things. Like she's always jumping the gun and being like, oh, there's this motive. Clearly it's this person. And Sam Rockwell was like, can you just chill out for 1 second, please? No, it's not that. It might be, but we don't know. That's not
yeah.
enough evidence. And kind of getting to the scene where we're supposed to believe Sam Rockwell is the killer, because you get these very vague details and there's that kind of twist. But even then, it's kind of like, that doesn't make any sense. That's a really dumb twist. And it's just this kind of like laughs. There's so much to do when you're working with being meta and being aware, that I feel like it's so easy for writers to kind of go into becoming a basic plot, the very thing that they're making fun of. So that's kind of what I'm
Okay.
seeing with this movie.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing, right? Like with meta content, with any kind of meta story you're trying to tell, whether it's a movie, a TV show, whatever, the key is finding the balance. You want to kind of walk the
Yeah.
line, but you don't want to cross it, because then you're going from, poking fun at like the cliches of the genre or whatever concept you're being meta about, and more or less just the suspension of disbelief, you cannot suspend disbelief anymore, because all of a sudden you're like, well, this whole thing is a joke. They don't really care, because I think
Yeah.
when meta content works well, is it pokes fun at some of the cliches, but it still maintains a certain level of respect for what that genre or that concept ultimately stands for. Like Deadpool, like for example, I'll draw the analogy again. The Deadpool movie, those two Deadpool movies work well because they're meta, they're poking fun at a lot of the cliches of the genre, but as a superhero movie, it still delivers the goods, and it
Yeah.
respects like the ultimately, the character arc. They
The
respect that.
formula.
They have a villain, they have a conflict, you have the fights. They're poking fun at it along the way, but if you were to like take all the meta stuff out of it, you would still get a very solid superhero movie. So what you're saying is, while it is meta and it's sort of entertaining in a way, ultimately where this movie kind of falls short is being a really good whodunit, Agatha Christie like esque movie, and that's maybe what
Yeah,
kind of
I
make helps it
it's
fall short.
I think if this came out in 1950s, it would be insanely unique, insanely like, but it's just it doesn't do anything new. You take away all the meta, you take away the jokes, you still have a plot that's not really all that special. It's nothing crazy. And I don't want to be too negative about this movie because we often do this. We start talking about like what the problem is, and it's super easy to kind of
Kind of
snowball.
snowball. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
So I will say I did find a lot of this entertaining. There were some really cool some bits and pieces, and I do there are some jokes with like Sam Rockwell that are kind of that I like a lot. I'm trying to be positive and I'm doing a bad job
Okay,
at it. So
okay.
I
Well,
apologize.
let me just ask you a simple question, right? I know like we've kind
Okay.
of gone into the story, we've talked about the acting, we've talked about what works, what doesn't. But ultimately, if somebody's watching this review and they want to know if you recommend the movie or not, do you recommend it?
Not in theaters. No.
Okay, so you're thinking wait for it to show up on like Hulu and then check it out then.
Yeah, if you see it on TV or you see it like on streaming and you have a chance and yeah, watch it. It's not necessarily a bad film. It's just there could have been a lot more done with this. That's all I'm saying.
Okay. Well, I mean, right now there's not a whole lot of movies in theaters, so this is one of a few there are. Certainly not a lot of big movies in theaters. I mean, The Woman King came out this week. That I
Yeah.
think is leading the box office on the weekend. It's got a
Got
wider release than this one does.
yeah. I think
We didn't get
six
a
and a
chance to go
half
see it,
million.
but if we do, we will review it. There's also other movies like Clerks 3, which is even in more limited release than what this movie is in. But
Yeah.
of all the choices you have, I mean, See How the Run is one of them. If you have seen it, if you want to go see it, do let us know what you think about it. We of course have told you what we thought about it, or at least Roland, you told us what you thought about it. I have not seen it. I would love to go see it still. I may not go see it in theaters though. I may heed your advice on that one.
Yeah.
But yeah, if you guys have an opinion on the film and you would like to share it with us, we would appreciate it if you'd love to comment down below. We would love to hear from you. We do feature comments on the show once a week, comment of the week, we call it. So we'd love to feature your comment there and then, address it and talk about it. If you have a question, you can leave that down there as well. Like and subscribe. Whether you don't like, we will take it both ways, a thumbs up or a thumbs down. We appreciate the interaction. That's what counts. We really appreciate that you guys are making the effort to hit that button, whether it's the thumbs up button or the thumbs down button, but do hit the subscribe button. That one matters. We really, so you can keep coming back to us. We review new movies every week, and we'd love for you to check out all of those reviews.